Exploring the history of the world would be impossible without first seeking inspiration from some of the most prominent architectural designs. Sure, many of the cities we have today are built on solid ground and are visible to everyone, but have you ever wondered what lies underneath the civilization that we've built as a species? Many archaeologists have posited different theories as to what must have been on the ground before today's big buildings and skyscrapers. And over the years, some discoveries have shown us just how ingenious the builders of old were. In this video, we'll be looking at a few underground settlements that are sure to absolutely blow your mind. Vardzia, located about 30 kilometers from Aspindza on the slopes of Erusheti Mountain in Georgia, Vardzia is a city that shows just how society can evolve and which tells the true story of humanity's past. Within this city, we see traces of history, as well as the ingenuity that undoubtedly existed long before some of our ancestors were even born. To be fair, Georgia is a country with a long history of cave-dwelling cities. From 3,000-year-old Uplistica to the 6th century David Gorecha Monastery and the long-forgotten dwellings of Samshvilda, the country has always had an impressive assortment of cave cities. However, none of them even holds a candle to Vardzia. In its heyday, Vardzia consisted of 6,000 rooms, all spread across 19 different levels. The city had an estimated 25 wine cellars, a nunnery, 15 chapels, and even an apothecary, where sick people could come in and get drugs they needed to treat their diseases. All of these came together to create a vibrant monastery, one which ended up expanding to become a full city. According to Soviet-era excavations, the area of Vardzia was initially inhabited during the Bronze Age, a testament to the reach of the Trialeti culture. The site of Vardzia has so far been identified to have contained 4 distinct building phases, the first of which was built during the reign of Giorgi III, between 1156 and 1184. This was the period when the site was first laid out, and the first cave dwellings were developed. Next, we have the second, which happened between Giorgi III's death and the marriage of his successor, Queen Tamar, in 1186. The third of these phases happened between Queen Tamar's reign and the Battle of Bastion in 1203. At this point, more dwellings and city defenses were added to Vardzia, as well as a proper water supply and even an irrigation network to boot. Finally, we have the fourth phase, which comprised a period of partial rebuilding after heavy damage struck the city following an earthquake in 1283. Interestingly, Vardzia had actually been instituted as a safeguard for Georgia against the constant threat of Mongol invasions. However, as we can see, the city soon grew into something far greater, a self-sufficient settlement, which also operated as a center of learning and civilization. According to legend, Vardzia was only accessible through a secret tunnel, and that Queen Tamar alone had about 366 of the apartments, a smart move, which ensured that none of her enemies or prospective city invaders would know exactly which one she was in. Sadly, however, Vardzia's decline eventually came in the 16th century. With the Safavids capturing the city in 1551, Vardzia was turned into a ruin. Its treasures were plundered and many of its citizens were killed. Eventually, many residents moved into the Caucasus, abandoning Vardzia in its entirety. Some monks did return to the site, and there were efforts to re-establish it, but Vardzia never really became that shining city that it once was again. Next on our list, we have Derinkuyu, a town in Turkey's Nevşehir province which, although significantly depleted, remains quite prominent in the country. Located in Cappadocia, Derinkuyu is a town with a pretty rich history. It is one of several underground cities in Cappadocia, and like many of these towns, it's become more of a tourist site. The oldest written source about this city comes in the writings of Xenophon, a Greek military leader who was born in 430 BC. In his work piece called Anabasis, Xenophon writes that the people living in Anatolia had excavated their homes underground, living in accommodations that were large enough to house them, their domestic animals, and even stored food supplies. As far back as Byzantine times, about the 4th century, Derinkuyu was known as Malakopia. The city expanded significantly in the Byzantine period, serving as a refuge from the raids of the Arab and Abbasid armies during the Arab-Byzantine Wars. Derinkuyu contained kitchens, food stores, stalls, churches, and even a religious school. According to some sources, the underground city came with at least 8 levels, as well as a depth of 85 meters. It could easily hold thousands of people, and the city remained a major protection site from the Mongolian invasions in the 14th century. Even late in the 20th century, Derinkuyi's inhabitants still use the city's underground settlements to evade Ottoman invasions. Sadly, the Cappadocian Greeks who lived here were forced to leave in 1923 following the population exchange between Greece and Turkey. The tunnels of Derinkuyi were abandoned, although the city still stands today. The Longyu Caves, or the Xiaonanhai Stone Chambers, as some people would call them, are a group of 24 artificial standalone caves located along Fenghuang Hill, close to the village of Xi'anbeikun in China's Zhejiang province. Discovered by farmers in 1992, the Longyu Caves are one of history's biggest secrets. Although we know when they were discovered, no one really knows when or how they were built. Some sources claim that they were created over 2,000 years ago, but that's pretty much all we know. Local farmers discovered them in an attempt to pump water from a pond, and that's pretty much it. To date, scientists and archaeologists have been baffled by the scale of these caves. Despite being man-made, the caves are incredibly large, with an average floor area of over 1,000 square feet and heights of up to 30 meters. The total area is also in excess of 320,000 square feet, with ceilings, walls, and pillar surfaces coming with similar finishes. Considering that the caves don't interconnect with each other, they've managed to maintain their structural integrity. Some engineers believe that the caves would have taken at least 1,000 workers to build, with a building period spanning no less than 6 years. And given that the caves stretch so far underground without any signs of light penetration, you kind of wonder how on earth the builders were able to achieve this one. Goddess knows how they managed to build something so grand. Hypogeum of Hal Saflieni. Our world is littered with pieces of proof that show us that several civilizations have indeed come and gone before us. The Hypogeum of Hal Saflieni is one such piece. Located on the island of Malta, the Hypogeum of Hal Saflieni is a stunning underground burial complex that was in use between 4000 BC and 1500 BC. It covers a remarkable 500 square meters, standing on the summit of a hill in Paula, not so far from Malta's Grand Harbor. Like the Longyu Caves, the Hypogeum was also accidentally discovered. A stonemason was laying the foundations to build several houses in 1902, and by consequence, he did some damage to the Hypogeum's upper level. However, his work led to the discovery of the settlement, and by 1903, the Hypogeum had become public property. The Hypogeum of Hal Saflieni is a unique monument, consisting of chambers, galls, and passages made out of Globigerina limestone. It is a complex that is dug in 3 levels, with site users digging deeper and deeper as their available space became more limited. Generally, the upper level of this structure consists of rooms that are said to have mostly been used for burials. The middle level served as an expansion, and it contained different rooms. There was a main chamber that had rooms made with ochre, and in this room a sculpture called the Sleeping Lady was discovered. There's also an oracle room, which produces some acoustic resonance whenever anyone speaks inside it. A decorated room is available in the middle section too. It's a spacious, circular hall with inward slanting smooth walls, all richly decorated with geometric spiral patterns. Finally, there is the Holy of Holies, a central structure that appears to be oriented towards the winter solstice. As for the lower level, not much was discovered there, suggesting that it rarely saw anyone come in. The underground city of Naurs. The French countryside holds an interesting gem in the underground city of Naurs. Dating back to the 3rd century AD, the city actually began as a bunch of caves that were used for truck movement and construction. As time went on, the locals transformed the quarries into refuges, expanding it into a sprawling complex that spanned over 3 kilometers. In total, the city was said to have nearly 300 chambers, 28 galleries, and corridors that could shelter about 3,000 people. At the same time, the city had enough empty parts for locals to store their goods from raiders and looters who frequented the region. Amongst other amenities, there were chapels, a bakery, and even hiding spaces for things like baked goods and livestock. Another nod to the ingenuity that went into creating this city were the different channels that both helped to dissipate heat and served to conceal the appearance of any life within the cities. This way, inhabitants could dwell in the cities privately and comfortably. With Europe eventually getting engulfed in the 30 Years' War, the underground city of Naurs reached its peak occupancy. However, as the continent began to stabilize again, cities like this started to lose their significance, and occupants soon abandoned them. Nevertheless, Naurs is a gem that remains visible to this day. Much of the history of our world can be told through examining our architecture. And as these underground cities show, many settlements on our planet are really just built on the ruins of former civilizations that lived before us. If you like what you saw and would love to learn more about our world, remember to drop a like and subscribe to our channel to learn more.